This episode of the Broadband Bunch is sponsored by ETI Software and Vetra FiberMap. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Broadband Bunch. This is Pizzutillo live from FTTH Europe in Berlin, Germany. I'm joined today by Vikram Chimalgi. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining the show.
Hi, Pete. Very nice meeting you.
How's the event been so far?
Oh, great. Fantastic. I'm quite excited to be here for the Fiber Summit event of the year. This is my day 2 at the conference. Day 1 yesterday has been quite terrific in terms of attending some of the workshops, heard quite meaningful conversations around keeping the total cost of operations lower, the penetration of AI, and good conversation and dialogue between the industry and the policymakers from the European Commission. Yeah,
I want to get a little bit into your thoughts on the European trends and some other takeaways. But before we do that, just tell us a little bit about you, how you ended up in this role, and what you all do.
Sure. I've been with Cyient for about 11 plus years now, and I've been in the telecommunication space for about 5 plus years. This is quite an exciting role for me. Telecommunication has been one of the greatest growth engines, the largest growth engines for Cyient, and I suppose I was there for the right time, just before pre-pandemic, and I've been fortunate enough to be leading the global delivery operations for entire telecommunication, and we're talking about close to 4,000 people working for this sector in Cyient.
Wow. So you guys have practices across many industries. How do you guys support the telecommunications space specifically?
Yeah, let me answer the first part of the question. Yes, we are quite diversified at a company level. We work with various different sectors. It classifies under these buckets. One is the connectivity, which obviously is telecommunication space, both in wireline as well as wireless. We are in the transportation sector, which is essentially everything under rail transportation and aerospace. Under sustainability, we work with a lot of our customers in the energy space and utilities, mining, etc. And also the new growth areas, essentially is under the umbrella of automotive, semiconductor, and so on and so forth. So this is the portfolio that we currently are engaged in. Coming to telecommunication, we work with about 35 communication service providers across the globe, both in wireline and wireless areas. These have been long tenured engagements ranging from 5 years until 22 years. Yeah.
And what are some of the areas that you help out in terms of network design and optimization?
Sure. So in the context of FTTX, right, we work with various of our customers in bringing the fiber to the home, to the node, to the curb, to the cell. What essentially it means is that we are the technology partners for our customers in the fiber rollout in various different geographies, right? And we are part of the very large programs across the globe, may it be the 5G rollout in Australia or the RDOF programs in the US, Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. We are also engaging the teams with the BEAD program, the UK fiber rollout program that we had, Gigabit program. So we are quite fortunate to have associated with our customers in all these programs across the globe.
That's quite a diversification there. You're working with customers in different markets of different levels of maturity. Mm-hmm. With the UK is kind of going through consolidation mode and more mature, where the US is kind of like the wild, wild west, and there's things going on. What's your view of what's happening in Europe versus what's happening in the US?
Yeah, quite interesting question. So let me give my viewpoints from the US market. In my opinion, I think the last 3 years, everybody was riding the wave in terms of the fiber to the home, fiber to the curb, fiber to the node. So in some pockets, we have seen that the design is pretty ahead, and the build construction is catching up. Of course, there is some stress in terms of the interest rates, in terms of the cost of construction, but I think the line balancing is eventually going to happen. The other big thing which is coming to all the operators is in terms of the copper reclamation program. There is also the BEAD program, which is Broadband Equity Access Deployment. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it is rollout of the fiber in the semi-urban and urban areas, the complementary of what RDOF was. So the future is very promising, I believe, in the US market. Now, coming to Europe and UK, I think UK and Europe have seen a lot of consolidation. The world is also moving in the telecom space in the merger and acquisition space. There is a lot of consolidation happening. There is also a lot of focus on harmonization of the networks in terms of the sharing of the networks. I think this is still at a drawing board stage. I say there are some hits and misses, but I think this is imperative that the network infrastructure has to be shared in order to make sure that everybody wins in this journey.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, with the consolidation, we're seeing a lot of folks getting stuck on how do you do the harmonization? How do you bring disparate networks together, even at a data level layer, as well as the systems? Are you helping people through that journey?
Partially, we are not too much into the system architecture of the operators. This is mostly done by their SMEs. At a point where they decide on the public infrastructure access to be shared, that's where we come into the picture.
Okay.
Of looking at the possibilities and how it could be optimized between the operator which owns the infrastructure and between the operators which is going to use the infrastructure. So that's where our journey begins.
Okay. There's been a lot of talk about AI. I don't even notice there's Microsoft's AI event kind of right next door. It's kind of a buzzword in some people's minds. What's your view on AI and the other kind of machine learning? How are they helping telecom operators?
I think there's great potential in the adoption of AI. And I'll give some color in terms of what we are doing, right? Our journey is mostly towards augmentation, what I mean by augmentation is that we don't expect the whole process to be automated overnight or in a set of given weeks from, automating 100% of the process. But we are looking at each of the steps in the work stream, identifying the propensity of automation, and then addressing those work streams. So it becomes more of an semi-automated or augmented processes. So in this journey, we have done as simple as .NET scripts. We have used RPA models, and we also used supervised learning models using AI to better our process. So just to give an example, LiDAR technology is something that a lot of operators leverage in a big way. We have our own infrastructure in terms of the LiDAR cameras mounted on the trucks, and we capture the data. Now, essentially, all the data which is captured is in point cloud, but then we also have written the rules in terms of language models. Depending upon the images, it can identify the classification of the assets, which helps in the pre-processing and post-processing of the data, and which kind of naturally dovetails into the design process. So this is one such example where we are compressing not only the survey time, but also the design automation time that we deliver to our customers.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you're evaluating the existing infrastructure, and then you're using that data to help inform future design enhancements.
Yes. Right.
Is there any AI built into the design process?
Yes, it is. So we have a tool which we call it as SciPlanet. So essentially what it is we have combed through the entire steps and processes, right from planning until we submit the build prints or the permit. So essentially, these are tools that we have automated the processes, right from design to validation, traffic control plans, permits, as well as the reports. So anything which could be done in a machine learning way has been done. So right from the placement of the nodes to placement of the distribution boxes, right, importing the GIS data, we have looked at everything which is manual, mundane, and that is what we are using the AI models to automate that. So this has helped immensely to bring down the design compression cycle time for about 40% of the entire workflow.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially right now in the U.S. There's a lot of people trying to get their act together in terms of the design and planning. What about reducing OpEx? How do you see these types of technologies helping in the operational side?
Let me take an example in the area of copper reclamation, right? So copper, as much as it is reliable, but it also has high maintenance cost, high operational cost. So we are engaged with one of our customers in a copper reclamation program, where we are not only doing the due diligence and discovery of the passive networks of copper, but we are also looking at the active networks and running the algorithms so that we can reroute the active networks in a manner that it frees up the copper passive network as much as possible.
Okay.
So this in a way helps the operators to not only reclaim the copper but also lower their operational efficiency cost and also meet their net zero ambitions.
That's really interesting. What do you see as kind of the biggest challenge in Europe in the next 12 months, and how do you think you guys can help address those?
I think I was speaking to some of the bankers and the private equity players, and there is an element of apprehension in terms of the ROI, right? I mean, while there is so much of buzz and push and thrust towards the rollout of fiber, but it also depends on how that is going to be, how the copper is going to be substituted towards that. I think this is more of an ROI discussion for the operators, but where we come in is, I think we can significantly bring down the design cycle. Not only that, but when we do the designs, we also design to build, which in a way means that how can we make the bill of material less shorter and less costlier for the operator. So that is where we come in. So we're keeping the end state in mind on the entire rollout, and typically the build spend is about 80% of the budget and the design spend is about anywhere between 15 to 20%, but this 15 to 20% decides the degree of spend that anybody would have in the build. So I think our play and our proposition is to make sure that the total cost of ownership for the operators remains optimal.
That's great. Any announcements coming up in the next year, innovations that you want to give us a little insight into?
Yeah, certainly. So we actively engage with the ecosystem available, and this ranges from the universities in Portugal to some of the premier institutes in India. We also partner with our technology partners like Azure and UiPath, Automation Anywhere, VC4, to name a few. We are exploring few of the ideas in terms of, like I said, augmentation. How do we progress from an augmentation stage towards the automation stage using some of the artificial intelligence tools? And we are taking some help from some of our technology partners to see, how we can, break the glass ceiling, if I may say so, and reduce the total cost of ownership for the operators much beyond 30%, which we are currently.
What are there's a lot of discussions going on at different levels here. What's some advice that you would give some of these, specifically in the U.S., right? Some of these smaller broadband operators that are trying to get going. What can they start doing today to help them kind of get ahead of this challenge?
I think they have to look at adoption of digital technologies, right? What we see is that a lot of these companies continue to work in the manner that they have worked in the last 5, 10, 15 years. The world is changing, very fast around that. We see that some of these alternates, if I may call so, right, they are still in the zone of 10 years ago, where they're not upbeat in terms of the adoption of digital technologies, as simple as using RPA for running the network configuration, doing the migration activities, and LiDAR, like I spoke about. I think my advice would be to come to the party and be there in terms of where the world is heading towards.
Yeah, you have an interesting perspective because you deal with so many different industries. I mean, do you feel that telecom is a bit of a laggard in terms of the adoption of some of these things?
I would say aerospace and off-highway, especially in the mechanical area, and of course automotive, have been the leaders and pioneers in adoption of these technologies. Telecom is still catching up. I think there is a lot of a burden of legacy, if I may say so, in this journey. But at the same time, people are realizing that the world is changing very, very fast, and before we know, the carpet under our feet is getting pulled up. So people are realizing that, and I'm optimistic that this adoption and embracing the technologies will happen at a much rapid pace than what it is happening today in the telecom sector.
So 12 months from now, we're at Fiber to the Home conference in Amsterdam 2025. What's some of the biggest leaps forward you think we'll be able to make in the next year?
I think we will be able to make a difference of the total cost of operations for the entities. In the morning breakfast session, I mentioned that we have enabled about 60 million homes globally for the fiber to the home. and this number we are still counting, and we believe that this took us about roughly about 10 years to get there, but it would not take another 10 years to reach the next 60 million. So I'm sure that we'll be able to do that in a much compressed cycle time.
Right. So buckle up, it's coming.
Yeah.
How can we learn more about you and your company?
You mentioned about how do we learn?
Yeah. How can our listeners learn more about you?
Sure. So there's a lot of information which is available on our websites, but we would also invite people. We have recently inaugurated Customer Experience Center in Hyderabad, but this is also a center where we demonstrate 35 plus of our solutions as technology studios. Obviously, people who come then visit there see it firsthand, but then we are also looking at launching a virtual tour, and soon people will be able to understand, what are these solutions that we are deploying, not just in the telco sector, but across all the industries I spoke about. So this is something that I would strongly encourage people and watch out for this space in learning more about Cyient.
And what's the website?
Cyient.com, Cyient.com.
Okay. Well, Vikram, thank you very much for the time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your show. It's been a pleasure meeting you and learning more about your company.
Same here, Pete. Thank you very much.
Thanks.